At 36, she couldn't cook an egg. At 50, she revolutionized cooking worldwide. Her story will move you to tears and inspire you to believe that it's never, ever too late to discover your true calling. This is the extraordinary story of Julia Child, the woman who proved that some of life's greatest adventures don't begin until you're willing to start over, no matter your age. Have you ever felt like you've missed your chance? Like the window of opportunity has closed and you're too old to start something new? That the dreams you once had are now impossible because too many years have passed? If you've ever felt this way, then Julia Child's story is for you. Because Julia didn't just start late, she started at an age when most people are thinking about winding down, not revving up. She became one of the most influential chefs in American history, not in her 20s, not in her 30s, but in her 50s. And she did it with absolutely no professional training, no culinary background, and no safety net. Today, I'm going to share with you the remarkable journey of a woman who discovered her life's purpose at an age when society told her she should already have it all figured out. A woman who proved that passion, persistence, and the courage to begin again can transform not just your own life, but the lives of millions. Let's start at the beginning, or rather the middle, because Julia's story truly begins in the middle of her life. Julia Carolyn McWilliams was born in 1912 in Pasadena, California, into a wealthy, conservative family. She was tall, 6 feet 2 inches, athletic, and spirited. She attended Smith College, one of the finest women's colleges in America. But cooking was nowhere on her radar. In fact, Julia had absolutely no interest in food. Zero. None. She was a terrible cook. She later admitted that before she moved to France, she could barely boil an egg properly. The kitchen was not her domain. So what was she doing? Well, like many women of her time and social standing, she was searching. After college, she worked in advertising in New York, writing copy for a furniture company. It was fine. It was respectable. But it wasn't anything special. It wasn't her calling. Then came World War II, and everything changed, not in the kitchen, but in the world of espionage. She joined the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA. She worked in intelligence, helping develop shark repellent for underwater explosives and managing top-secret documents. She was stationed in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and China. It was adventurous, exciting, important work. And it was there, in the OSS, that she met Paul Child, a sophisticated, worldly man who loved art, culture, and most importantly, food. They fell in love, married in 1946, and settled into married life. But here's the thing. At 34 years old, Julia Child still couldn't cook. Paul, her husband, was the one who appreciated fine cuisine. Paul was the one who knew about wine, about French cooking, about the art of a well-prepared meal. Julia, she was still learning. Then, in 1948, when Julia was 38 years old, Paul's work with the United States Information Service transferred them to Paris, France. And that's when everything changed. Picture this, a tall, enthusiastic American woman stepping off the train into post-war Paris. The city was rebuilding, but its culinary tradition, oh, that was eternal. And Julia's first meal in France? It was at a restaurant in Rouen called La Couronne. She ordered sole meunière, a simple dish of fresh sole, butter, lemon, and parsley. When she took that first bite, something awakened inside her. It was like a light switch flipped on in a room that had been dark her entire life. She described that moment as an opening up of the soul and spirit. At 36 years old, Julia Child discovered her passion. Now, discovering your passion is one thing. Pursuing it is another altogether, especially when you're starting from scratch in your late 30s. Julia could have just enjoyed French cooking as a hobby. She could have taken a few casual classes, learned to make a decent coq au vin, and called it a day. But that wasn't Julia. When she fell in love with something, she fell completely, utterly, obsessively in love. She decided she was going to learn French cooking properly, professionally, from the very foundation. In 1949, at 37 years old, Julia enrolled in Le Cordon Bleu, the most prestigious cooking school in the world. And here's the thing, she wasn't treated like some curious American housewife dabbling in a hobby. She was placed in the professional track, the same rigorous program designed for people who wanted to become professional chefs. She was the only woman in her class, the only American, and certainly the oldest student by far. Her classmates were young Frenchmen in their teens and 20s, training to work in restaurants and hotels. They looked at this tall American woman with her broken French and her enthusiasm and probably wondered what on earth she was doing there. But Julia didn't care. She showed up every single day. She practiced her knife skills until her hands ached. She made stocks and sauces over and over until they were perfect. She learned the French techniques that had been passed down for generations, techniques that most Americans had never even heard of. Remember, this was the 1950s. In America, convenience foods were all the rage. TV dinners, Jell-O molds, canned, everything. American cooking was about efficiency, not artistry. French cooking, with its butter, its thyme, its technique, it was the complete opposite. But Julia was mesmerized. She graduated from Le Cordon Bleu, but she didn't stop there. She continued her education, studying privately with master chefs, learning about French cuisine from every angle. And then she met two women who would change her life, Simone Beck and Louisette Berthollet. They were working on a French cookbook for Americans, and they needed help. Julia, with her American perspective and growing French expertise, was perfect. They started teaching cooking classes together in Julia's Paris kitchen. They called their school L'École des Tres Gourmands, the School of the Three Gourmands. These weren't just any cooking classes. Julia and her partners were teaching American expats and military wives the real techniques of French cooking, demystifying the process, making it accessible. And slowly an idea began to form. What if they could do this on a larger scale? What if they could write the definitive French cookbook for American home cooks, not a collection of intimidating recipes, but a true teaching tool? They began to work on mastering the art of French cooking. This is where most people would have published quickly, capitalized on the momentum, but not Julia. The perfectionist in her wouldn't allow it. The book took nearly 10 years to write, 10 years of testing, retesting, writing, rewriting, 10 years of making sure every single recipe would work in an American kitchen with American ingredients. Julia was in her late 40s now, approaching 50. She had no book deal yet, no fame, no guarantee that any of this would work. She was simply doing the work because she believed in it. In 1961, when Julia was 59 years old, Mastering the Art of French Cooking was finally published. And it was an immediate sensation. The book was unlike anything Americans had seen before. It was comprehensive, 726 pages of detailed instructions, techniques, and recipes. It was thorough, almost obsessively so. She wrote it assuming the reader knew nothing, explaining every step, every technique, every reason why things should be done a certain way. But here's what made it revolutionary. It was encouraging. Julia's voice came through on every page, warm, enthusiastic, unintimidated by failure. She told readers that cooking was an adventure, that mistakes were part of the process, that anyone could learn. Critics loved it. Home cooks loved it. But Julia's real breakthrough, the moment that made her a household name, came the following year, in 1962, when she was 50 years old. She was invited to appear on a book review program on public television called I've Been Reading. She was supposed to discuss the book, but Julia, being Julia, brought along a hot plate, some eggs, a copper bowl, and a whisk. While talking about the book, she demonstrated how to make an omelet. The station's phones lit up. Viewers loved her. Her height, her distinctive warbling voice, her unscripted enthusiasm, the way she wasn't afraid to make mistakes on camera, it was captivating. It was real. It was joyful. The station executives saw something special. They asked her if she'd be interested in doing a cooking show, a whole series teaching French cooking on television. Julia was 50 years old, and she was about to become a television pioneer. The French Chef premiered in 1963, and it was unlike any cooking show that had come before. There were no careful edits, no pristine takes. Julia cooked in real time. She dropped things. She made mistakes. When a potato pancake stuck to the pan and fell apart when she tried to flip it, she picked it up, put it back together, and said cheerfully, "Remember, you're alone in the kitchen. Nobody can see you." America fell in love with her. Here was this tall, exuberant woman in her 50s, teaching them to cook dishes with intimidating French names and making it seem not just possible, but fun. She demystified French cooking. She made it accessible. She made it joyful. The French Chef won a Peabody Award, the first educational program to do so. Julia won an Emmy. The show ran for 10 years and 206 episodes. She became one of the first celebrities of American public television. But more than that, she changed how Americans thought about food. Before Julia, cooking was often seen as a chore, something housewives had to do. Julia made it an art, an adventure, a pleasure. She introduced Americans to techniques, ingredients, and dishes they'd never encountered before. Julia Child didn't stop at 50 or 60 or 70. She kept working, kept teaching, kept inspiring until she was well into her 80s. She wrote more cookbooks, dozens of them. She hosted more television shows. She appeared on talk shows and commercials and movies. She became a cultural icon. Saturday Night Live parodied her. Meryl Streep portrayed her in a major motion picture. But through it all, Julia remained fundamentally herself. Enthusiastic, curious, unafraid of mistakes, and absolutely convinced that anyone at any age could learn something new. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The French government made her a Chevalier of the Légion d'honneur. The Smithsonian installed her entire kitchen, the one where she filmed The French Chef, as a permanent exhibit. But perhaps her greatest legacy isn't the awards or the accolades. It's the millions of people she inspired to try, to attempt that soufflé, to make that boeuf bourguignon, to step into the kitchen without fear and with joy. Julia Child passed away in 2004, just 2 days before her 92nd birthday. She had lived a remarkably full life: spy, student, teacher, author, television pioneer, culinary revolutionary. But remember, none of that, none of the fame, none of the impact, none of the joy she brought to millions would have happened If she hadn't taken that first bite of saumonier in France at age 36 and decided to pursue it. If she hadn't enrolled in cooking school at 37. If she hadn't spent her 40s writing a book with no guarantee it would be published. If she hadn't stepped in front of a camera at 50 and shared her passion with the world. So, let me ask you something. What's your saumonier moment? What's that thing that lights you up inside, that makes you think, this is what I want to do? And if you've already had that moment, what's stopping you from pursuing it? Is it your age? Is it fear? Is it the belief that you've somehow missed your chance? Because Julia Child's story tells us something vitally important. Life doesn't end at 30 or 40 or 50. Those aren't end points. They're not even middle points. They're just points, moments in time, and any moment can be the moment you begin. Julia couldn't cook an egg at 36. At 50, she was revolutionizing American cuisine on national television. She started with nothing but curiosity and passion, and she built something magnificent. You don't need to be young to start something great. You don't need to have it all figured out in your 20s. You don't need a head start or perfect timing or ideal circumstances. You need passion. You need persistence. You need the courage to be a beginner, to not know everything, to make mistakes and keep going anyway. Julia Child often said, find something you're passionate about and keep tremendously interested in it. That's the secret. Not talent, not youth, not perfect circumstances, just tremendous interest and the willingness to pursue it no matter where you are in life. So whatever it is you've been dreaming about, that business, that art form, that skill, that passion, I want you to hear Julia's voice in your head, cheerful and encouraging, telling you the same thing she told millions of home cooks. The only real stumbling block is fear of failure. In cooking, you gotta have a what the hell attitude. What the hell? Try it. Make a mess. Start over. Keep going. You're alone in your kitchen. Nobody can see you. And when you finally flip that pancake and it lands perfectly, oh, that's when the magic happens. If Julia Child's story inspired you today, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the thing you've been putting off because you think you're too old to start? What's your passion that you've been afraid to pursue? And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, that it's never too late to start over, share this video. Sometimes a story like this is exactly what someone needs to take the first step towards a new life. Your time has come. Your experiences have value, and your best years are still ahead.